Welcome to the top 10 shortest cooldown iframes in MapleStory. The most useful skill in the game is probably iframes because they allow you to ignore boss mechanics and ignore one-shots so that you can maximize your damage or be safe when you're in a bad situation. And the best iframes are the ones with the shortest cooldown because you can use them more frequently in a boss fight. So here are the top 10 shortest cooldown iframes in MapleStory. At number 10, we have 4 iframes with 45-second cooldowns, so they're all tied for 10th place. So at 45-second cooldowns, we have Cadena, Chain Art's Reign of Chains. It's a key down which, you can just remain in iframe. 45 seconds for Dual Blade, Chains of Hell. We also got the 45 seconds cooldown Dawn Warrior Blazing Assault and Lesser Charge. It's a 2-part iframe where you can dash twice in a short duration, and they're both iframes. And the 45-second cooldown Thunderbreaker Deep Rising. It's like an AoE attack. At number 9, we have the Kane's iframe at 40 seconds. We have the Dragon Scale. You can also maintain this invincibility up to 3.4 seconds, which is pretty long actually, by just holding down the key, as well as you can pretty much move around a little bit, as well as you can stay in the air if you can use in the air, so that's pretty cool. At number 8, we have Paladin's Sacrosanctity. So when I first thought about this skill and I didn't have a Paladin bossing me, I figured I can just steal it from Paladins and have the entire skill to myself without having actually the real class there. But I'm wrong, and the Paladin's skill is much different from Paladin or Phantom's stealing skill, right? Because you don't actually have the full skill with you there. So the real Paladin skill is that you can actually cancel the skill to actually get back cooldown from it. So Sacro has actually a pretty short cooldown if you cancel it early. So according to the skill description, it can last for 30 seconds, but it would be a 300-second cooldown if you use it for the full 30 seconds, which is a really long cooldown, which doesn't fit with this list. However, theoretically, if you use the skill for 1 second and you cancel it, the cooldown of Sacro would be 39 seconds. But reading this carefully here, it says 45 seconds for every 5 seconds of the skill, which means if you cancel it with 1 second, technically you only canceled 25 seconds plus that 4 seconds, right? Which 4 seconds doesn't translate to 5 seconds, so you don't get that 45-second cooldown, which means the minimum would be like the 5 seconds you have to use it for, right? So by those calculations, if my calculations are correct, the minimum cooldown of the skill would be 75 seconds if you cannot cancel it after the first 5 seconds. So let me know down in the comments how this actual skill works, because I don't have a Paladin bossing wheel. But if it's true and you can't cancel it at 1 second, it will be a 39-second cooldown. The next 3 iframes will be tied at 30 seconds each. However, I'll be ranking them based on how easily it is to use the iframe in a boss fight scenario. So at number 7, I put Phantom's Mark. So Phantom's Mark requires you to have 7 Master Thief marks on the enemy to actually use this iframe to get it off. So if you don't have these marks, you can't really use the iframes, but it's okay because Phantoms actually have a lot of iframes themselves, plus they can steal iframes from other classes, so that's really good. At number 6, we have the Cannoneers, the Nuclear Option, also a 30-second cooldown iframe. So this iframe is pretty unique because you actually have to hold it down to aim and use your arrow keys to aim the shot, and once you fire a shot, there we go. So when you're aiming the shot, you get an iframe, and when you fire the shot, you actually also get another iframe. So it's like a 2-part iframe, plus there's a really low cooldown of 30 seconds, so that's pretty nice. The only problem I have with this iframe is that if you accidentally just tap the key and let go before, aiming your shot, you actually don't get any iframe, so you will die. So when I was first playing this class, I was like, oh damn, I didn't get the iframe and I just died. So I kind of like griefed my C-block runs. So yeah, but after learning about it, it's pretty nice as an iframe. At number 5, we have Demon Slayer's Ravenstorm at a 30-second cooldown iframe as well. The difference between this and those other skills like the Nuclear Option by Cannoneer and the Phantom's Mark is that this is a 3rd job skill, which means you can cooldown skip this skill if you have a cooldown skip ability, which is one of the best in slot for Demon Slayer, so it's really nice. As well as when you're using the iframe, you also heal 50% of your HP, so Demon Slayer's Ravenstorm is pretty top tier for an iframe. At number 4, we have Hero's World Reaver, which is a 25-second cooldown iframe. So pretty much World Reaver just cuts the screen in half and does a bunch of damage, and you're invulnerable when you're casting it. So it's pretty nice for damage, so you can use it for damage because it's really short cooldown iframe. But if you ever need it for like a situation where you are trying to dodge mechanics, you have it right there because it's only a 25-second cooldown iframe. At number 3, we have Ho Young's Sage Dream of Shangri-La. So on the skills, it says it's a 200-second cooldown duration, which is pretty long cooldown, which would never make this list. However, similar to Paladin, where you get cooldown back if you cancel the skill early, which means if you use it for 1 second and cancel it right away, the cooldown of this iframe is actually only 23 seconds. So basically, Hui Young is pretty much one of the best iframes, I would say, ever, because you can use it for less or more depending on the situation, and the cooldown will adjust to whatever you use. At number 2, we have Shadow Warrior's Trick Blade, which has a 20-second cooldown on its iframe. So Trick Blade is pretty tricky, surprisingly, because I have not been using this skill correctly. Trick Blade has two things. It has a mobbing Trick Blade and a bossing Trick Blade. So the mobbing Trick Blade is, it doesn't give you the iframe in mobbing, which is the problem, which was what I was using. If you use Trick Blade alone, you get the mobbing version, which is only a 14-second cooldown, but if you use the iframe Trick Blade, then you get a 20-second cooldown. To actually utilize this kill correctly, you need to have 3 wound debuffs on the enemy, and then you need to actually link the Trick Blade skill with either Sonic Blow or with Assassinate with Trick Blade to actually utilize that iframe. At number 1, if you haven't already guessed it, it is indeed Mihail. So Mihail's Royal Guard first job skill allows you to actually guard an enemy attack, and if you do guard successfully, you get a 4-second iframe, and this iframe is a 6-second cooldown. So you literally only have 2 seconds of being attacked. So if you guard successfully, you can pretty much never die on Mihail if you play this class to perfection, I would say. So yeah, this class is pretty hard to get yourself killed on because they also have other 5th job skills that protect you. So yeah, Royal Guard, pretty nice. 6-second cooldown, 4 seconds of invincibility duration, only 2 seconds to actually get attacked. But yeah, that is the list. Mihail being number 1 is pretty deserved because their entire class kit is based on, you know, guarding your enemy attacks, right? So yeah, that is the list. But there is one more skill I would like to mention that could be on the list, but I'm not sure if I'm playing the class correctly here. So if there's any Aaron mains, let me know. So according to Beyond Blade's description, it says, let's see here, damage increases when it is used as a link skill after using the final blow, and you're invincible while you're using it. So technically the skill actually doesn't have a cooldown because you need a specific combo set to actually trigger the skill. But I've been trying and I can't really trigger this invincibility effect they're mentioning in the skill description, so I'm not sure if it exists or it's just there. I do see the super stance when you're using the skill, so that's not an issue, but it's not a true iframe if you can't survive with it, right? So technically it doesn't have a cooldown, so technically it would be number 1 if it is an iframe, but let me know if this is a real iframe or not. But yeah, that is it for the list. I think to end it off, I'll just say that my favorite iframe on this list is probably Demon Slayer's Ravenstorm, because it can be cooldown skipped and it heals you, and it's really simple to use. There's no conditions of like debuffing your enemy or something like that, so it's pretty simple to use. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.